So when my baby was born, my aunt called me from Texas and asked me to tell her what she looked like. I said she looks like James Cagney in the movie Public Enemy. She looks like a tiny little criminal. And her ears are the size of bird baths. Compare her to a flower, my aunt said. A tulip, I said. But this baby was alien to me. Her inverted nipples that looked like antlions lay in wait at the bottom of them. Her toenails that curved up, not down. Her loose skin that looked like she was wearing some old man's pants. A message of potential oddness had not gotten through the scrim of white noise about what you're supposed to look at and see and feel when you look at your baby. I think I was dissociating. It began when my water broke, and it lasted throughout labor. Honestly, it lasted about 2 years. When the nurse positioned a mirror so that I could see my vulva, magnified suddenly, hugely. It was like Godzilla's vulva. And I was staring at it with horrified fascination. And I have trouble saying that because I feel like this is a moment when you're supposed to feel vaginal pride. When your vulva's getting this long overdue admiration and respect that it certainly deserves. Instead, I turned to my husband and said, Al, I'm sorry, that's what you have to look at when you're going down on me. He said, Charlie, if that's what you're thinking about now, your mind is truly in the wrong place. That's a hallmark of my mind. Wrong time, wrong place. Wherever it should be, it's somewhere else, working overtime. As I began to hemorrhage, as teams of doctors came in to try to stabilize my blood pressure, as the room filled with professionals and nothing was going the way that they wanted it to go, my mind separated from my body, floated away, so that I could watch everything they were doing to me from a safe, distant place. I saw my husband leave the room, and I knew he was going to be with our daughter, and I thought, that's right, he should go and be with the living. Instead, he came in to that crazy space a few minutes later, holding our baby, and put her on my chest. Months later, I asked him why he'd done that. He'd been an EMT. He knew what was going on. He said, I thought you should have a chance to hold your baby once before you died. We'd moved in to our first place together when I was 8 months pregnant. It didn't occur to me that I should be making a room for the baby, that I should be walking out in the neighborhood and collaring other pregnant ladies and initiating friendships. I put a really high value on spontaneity and a lower one on preparedness. We'd improvise our way through this and have a great time, I thought. Right. 2 weeks after I got home from the hospital, my husband got on a plane and was gone for 6 weeks, a pattern repeated throughout our child's infancy. Suddenly, I was alone in a suburb of DC with a new baby and a very old dog in a place where I knew no one and had no family anywhere near. Before I had this baby, I'd been a Rolling Stone. I'd lived in backcountry Oregon for a writing fellowship where it was so much more important that I keep a low profile with problem bears than it was that I was writing. I'd lived on the Vit Van community in rural Nevada and taught writing to Mormon ranchers' kids. I'd commuted by seaplane to an island off the coast of Alaska and worked with Tlingit kids. I'd run a nonprofit in Maine, providing studio space and gallery space for artists with mental health issues. Then I'd given birth, and suddenly I was the artist with mental health issues. My huge life had shrunken to 2 people, me and this baby, alone in the suburbs. I had 2 problems the way that I saw it: the not having a friend problem and the not loving my baby problem. Now I see it as the same problem. because if I'd had a friend to confide in, to talk about my love impairment with, I think I could have turned to the baby with a lighter heart. Instead, the weight of what I wasn't feeling was always between us. Camaraderie is a word that we associate with men, comrades, fellow soldiers, comrades in arms. I needed a co-madre. I needed someone who could fit themselves to my engorged soul and say, I too felt that way, and all my grief and guilt would let down and flow away from me. I'd never had any trouble making friends, but suddenly at this crucial point in my life, I couldn't make a friend to save my life. And it didn't really feel like life without one. My neighborhood was full of moms, but they'd all had friends, and then they'd had their baby. I'd had my baby, and now I needed a friend. It was sort of like wanting to be married before you have a partner. All possible candidates sense your desperation and flee. On corners in the neighborhood, as I was creeping down the street with my ancient pit bull and my baby, moms were thickly clustered, talking. I'd think of icebreakers, like, how'd you get your baby to sleep through the night? The answer was always the same: I don't remember. It felt like a conspiracy of cold shoulders to me. I didn't yet understand how the new experiences of child rearing overlay and erase the old ones, even when you don't want them to. I would continue down the street with my child and my dog, heading to the park. I hated the park. It felt like a social gladiator's ring to me. The moms close to my age sat thickly clustered at one picnic table, talking about real estate. Why weren't they talking about the fact that our country was being run by Dick Cheney? Or about long nights of passion that had shrunk to quickies during Thomas the Tank Engine? Or that the Washington Post said that I should go out and buy duct tape and plastic sheeting so I could seal me and my baby inside our rental in case of chemical attack. I needed to talk about these things, about despair and desire and rage, not balloon mortgages. The nannies sitting on the edge of the sandbox would make room for me. They talked about online dating sites while they watched their charges like hawks. Sometimes we would make up a personal ad together for one of the babies. Year-old boy, already walking. 90th percentile. Good at tumbling and wanting your toy. Seeking younger female. Height, weight, proportionate. To watch me have tantrums and drool on. Potty training's a plus. I appreciated these moments of laughter. It wasn't like the universe was never kind to me. It's just the universe couldn't touch something deep inside of me. I wanted to be away from my baby just enough to miss her. I wanted a grandmother to cavell and say, you've got to leave her with me for the morning. Once when my husband had been gone for weeks, and I just put Willa down for an afternoon nap, I thought, would it be so bad if I ran to the bookstore? If she woke up alone and cried for a few minutes, is that so awful? I was slipping into the car when my spooky neighbor Orleans, this ancient, wise crone, shouted, "Where's your baby?" I pretended I was just retrieving something from the car, even though I was carrying my purse. Orleans marched me back into the house, to the baby's crib, where she lay a horrible shade of red, roasting in her fleece onesie. I felt lucky she hadn't self-ignited. Orleans grabbed her and unzipped the onesie, and Willa woke up and saw Orleans and was wreathed in smiles. I said, "She likes you. She really likes you." And Orleans said, "Isn't it funny how they know who loves them and who doesn't?" I never did meet someone that I could talk to about not loving my baby. I just eventually began loving my baby. Recently, finally, a friend said to me, "I felt the same way, Charlie, and thank God it only lasted 2 weeks, because I couldn't have lived with that emptiness any longer." For me, it lasted 80 weeks. It took moving to Tucson and having a husband that came home at night. It took meeting my first friend, a woman half my age, who said, "You sure have lived a lot of places. Are you planning on moving again anytime soon? Because if you are, I'm not going to invest in our friendship." I said, "If you'll be my friend, I will never leave Tucson." Now, my story with my child is a love story. It's a rom-com. It made all the more precious to me because it began as a frozen Bergman movie. We're close. We're really close. Sometimes I think we're too close. The other day, they wanted me to go to a midnight movie with them. And I said, "Take another teenager, someone who would actually enjoy it." They said, "But Mom, we can build a memory. We can have a parent-teen bonding experience. You'll love it." They were relentless. Finally, I had to say, "Will, I think we've reached the point in our relationship where we need to start seeing other people." A few days ago, my kid, who after hearing what I was writing about now, goes not only by they, them, but also by the kid that you now love, was reading a poem that they'd written when they should have been paying attention in biology. They read the line, "When you're born and destroy your mother's life, and then you rebuild it." They have Orleans' scary clarity. Only now, because I love them, I see it as the gift it is.